The Trump administration considering a ban on trans gun ownership and gun buying. Purchasing a firearm is something that there already are a lot of rules around. I know because I've bought a whole bunch of guns myself. And the reality is this is going to get very contentious with Democrats because they've been saying in the aftermath of a lot of shootings, but in this most recent one where a trans terrorist shot up a Catholic church full of kids, killed two of them, shot over a dozen. They've been saying, you must do something. You must do something. That's the refrain. And if you're not willing to do something, you're the problem. It's on you. It's your fault that this keeps happening. Okay, well, let's take that then to the next step. Here we are with the Trump administration saying that they want to do something. They want to prevent trans individuals from buying guns. Now, because the trans community has been elevated by the left as really the preeminent and ultimate victim status individuals in America today, to the extent that they'll say there's an active genocide and an erasure of them going on in America, the most extreme kind of language, a genocide of trans people, the erasure of trans people. When you erase a person, what do they mean by that? Well, when you say genocide, we talk about ethnic cleansing. These are terms that evoke the worst crimes in human history of all time. That's going on when it comes to trans people. Or they'll talk about an epidemic of anti-trans violence. Where is that coming from? Who's doing this? How many times is it occurring? Show me the data. Show me the numbers. I'm not seeing this. Why do they say it? They say it because they're trying to create a perception that trans individuals are under continuous violent assault, and therefore anybody who tries to adjust or stands in the way of any trans-specific policies is part of that genocidal effort, right? This is the moral blackmail that they engage in. But on this issue, it's interesting to me because the prohibition that currently exists for people that are going to buy a gun is under federal law. A person is prohibited from buying or possessing a firearm if they have been involuntarily committed to a mental institution or formally adjudicated as a mental defective. So a judge has said this person's crazy, or they've been involuntarily committed to a mental institution. Now, as we know, the bar to involuntarily commit someone is very high. And that's actually become a problem, I think. A lot of people have seen this in recent years where it shouldn't be as difficult as it is to get people committed to mental, because it's bad for them, it's bad for other people. There is so much to see when you look at the data, the information on individuals who hurt themselves or hurt others, and they had been known for a long time to be a risk. It had been known for a long time that they were severely mentally ill, right? Mental illness, I think to put it in this context is helpful. Mental illness is like physical, corporeal illness in that, you know, a lot of people struggle with it at different levels. Everyone will have some mental health challenges at some point in their life. Death of a spouse, maybe depression follows, postpartum depression after a baby, PTSD if you serve in the military, right? There's mental health stuff that comes up that we know is just the result of dealing with difficult events or being people. And then there's stuff that is extreme. Then there's being a paranoid schizophrenic. Then there's having severe depressive disorder. And I bring it to the mental health, physical health comparison because, we all can get a cold, and that's okay. And you want to get healthy from that cold. But if you're somebody who has, a severely contagious and deadly disease, that has to be treated differently, right? There's severity differences. So just to say a mental health issue, that covers so much. Just like a cold is a health issue and Ebola is a health issue, but very different in the severity and how they should be treated by those individuals and how society treats them, right? No one locks you in your room. Well, with COVID they did, but no one locks you in your room when you have a cold, but you might have to be contained while you're fighting Ebola, and that's fair, right? Same thing with mental health. If you have, minor anxiety, like about, 30 or 40 million Americans do, where it's clinical level, but it's something you can manage. That's a mental health challenge. You should still be able to buy a gun. If you are someone, though, who is seeing pink elephants flying in the sky that aren't there, obviously, and you have severe schizophrenia, if you've been committed to a facility, you can't buy a gun legally, and there is a prohibition against that. So I'm saying all this so that we can put it into context. Where would transgenderism fall on this spectrum? Now, I know people would say right away, transgenderism is a who you are thing. It's not a mental illness at all. It was in the DSM-5 and the DSM-4, I think. I forget. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. It was there until pretty recently, certainly in the last 10 years, I think. And it was under gender dysphoria. And it was considered a mental health condition. And since it has been removed. And so now you get to gender identity issues, is what it's being called. Okay, well, this is a conversation we should have out in public, because if someone is trans, are they mentally ill? If they're mentally ill, how mentally ill? And how does that factor into the laws that we have around firearms? I mean, I've said this before. Because I go shooting, I go to the gun range. And I'm a range safety officer, a certified pistol instructor. So I've spent some real time at the range, especially in the last couple of years. And I'll tell you this, everyone who spends time at a range knows that there's always a risk of someone doing a suicide at the range. And then there's the risk additionally of just because they can go there with their firearm and take their time and they have the firearm out in their hand. I mean, it's a horrible thing, but this does happen occasionally. And also, they sometimes will take somebody else with them on the way. This happens rarely, but it can happen. If somebody told me that they were struggling with heroin addiction and they were going through withdrawal, I wouldn't want them shooting next to me on a gun range. I wouldn't want to take them out to the gun range. I would say, you're having some issues. Same way if someone was drunk, I mean really drunk, not like had a beer a couple hours ago. If someone was really drunk, would you want to be at a shooting range with them? No. If they're impaired, you're talking about lethal firearms in their hands. And we get to, if you are trans, are you psychologically impaired? Is your judgment impaired? This is the question the Trump administration is asking. YouTube may have a problem with me for saying this, but this is the discussion. This can be something that we can either talk about openly, or we can try to have places that don't want to deal with reality shut this stuff down. But that is what is going on. So even if the Trump administration does not see this through, or maybe is not successful, because I do think there are constitutional issues with this, right? You'd have to pass legislation. It would be deprivation of rights before you trigger any kind of, if you're not adjudicated, how can you have your rights taken away? And this is why a lot of really crazy people can still buy guns, because they're crazy, but they were never committed to a facility, and so they don't have. So it becomes complicated. But I think the discussion is important, because it gets to this whole issue of, well, is transgender, is being trans a mental health issue, and is it something that should be treated as a serious mental health issue that has public safety risk? It heightened. I'm not, of course. Oh, are you saying all trans people are dangerous? I know trans people. Of course, they're not all dangerous, of course. But I also know a lot of people that have drug addictions. I still love them. They're still my fellow human beings. But they got a problem. I don't encourage the drug addiction. I want them to seek help, right? I know people who are recovering alcoholics. And so when you're talking about trans, where does that fall on the spectrum of mental illness? How seriously should it be treated as a problem for society to tackle as we go forward? I mean, this is the discussion. All right. Our sponsor is Preborn. And look, abortion's never easy to talk about, but we have to, because it's happening day in and day out all across the country still. Just because Roe v. Wade is gone, in fact, abortion's gone up since Roe v. Wade nationally. It's tragic. So we're trying to change hearts and minds, and that's great. But how do you save lives now? How do you save a tiny baby in the womb today, tomorrow, next week? This is where Preborn steps in. They've been doing this for decades. They've saved hundreds of thousands of babies. Preborn says, hey, moms, no judgments. Just come into our clinic. It's all free. Come into our clinic. Let you have an ultrasound. Again, free ultrasound. So you can see the little tiny baby growing in your womb. And let's talk about your options and the love and the support that you will get by having this baby from preborn. That's what happens. It's incredible. Over 350,000 babies have been saved in this way. It's happening every day. $28 a month, you would be sponsoring one of these ultrasounds and one of these visits for a pregnant mom in crisis. And the numbers show overwhelmingly after this process, the mom decides, I'm going to have this little baby. You're saving lives. $28 a month. It's tax deductible, too, by the way. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby to donate today. That's pound 250, say the word baby. Or go to preborn.com/buck, preborn.com/BUCK. So there's that. Now, we have the Trump administration trying to fight through some crazy stuff going on with these judges. And I got to tell you, it's very frustrating to see the hashtag resistance judiciary continue to do what they do. Because even when they're getting overturned by the Supreme Court, which is happening with frequency, and they know it's happening, there is the time that is lost in this process. They're trying to, as much as they can, run out the clock. And let me give you a few examples of this. For one, Trump wants an immediate review by the Supreme Court of the tariff decision that came down from the Court of Appeals, because think about what this would mean. If they're ruling his tariffs are unconstitutional, if that is held, there's almost $1 trillion that's going to come in on tariffs revenue this year. Do we give it back? What does that mean for his negotiations with countries? Well, we already know Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has said that countries are beginning to back away from the negotiations. Countries are beginning to say, well, I'm just going to wait this out and see, because maybe you don't even have the authority to be making these deals. This is a huge problem. Huge problem. The Trump administration is relying on a 1977 law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which lets the president take unilateral action to regulate the economy during an emergency. Appeals court, 7-4 vote, said that none of these actions explicitly include the power to impose tariffs, duties, or the like, or the power to tax. Well, the Emergency Economic Powers Act sounds like it would include tariff stuff, but point is, and 4 judges agreed with Trump. This wasn't like a slap down by all, and 4 judges agree with what Trump has done. So this is going to have to go up to the Supreme Court. But once again, you have these judges who are standing in the way of something that we've already seen now is a good thing. This is helping the country. This is sensible. And yet these judges, because they hate Trump, want to stand in the way of it. They continuously do this. And it is very frustrating to watch, because yes, we have respect for our system. And so there's really no way that we can sidestep any of this. We have to go. And that's what Trump does. They always say he's a dictator, and his response is, all right, I'll see you in court. All right, our Solicitor General will present this to the Supreme Court, and then we'll abide by the system. That's not what dictators explicitly don't do that. So I just think it's really important that we all understand when they say that Trump's a dictator, they're just full of it, and it's crazy. Our sponsor here is Birch Gold. If I could turn back the clock a full year, you know what I would do? Buy more gold. I bought some, but gold has gone up in value about 40%. And this is great news for existing gold owners. But look, if you don't have gold yet, not too late. And if you have gold, want to add some more? Birch Gold Group, my friends. They are who I go to for my gold. And they know that the long-term thesis on gold remains stronger than ever. Central banks worldwide are buying gold for a number of reasons, hedging against inflation, fortifying their own currencies. So it's a smart investment. There is continued demand for gold out there at the systemic level. So Birch Gold Group makes owning that physical gold super easy. I've got some at home. They also can convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA with physical gold. So text my name, Buck, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold, A-plus rating with a Better Business Bureau, tens of thousands of happy customers. Take control of your savings today. Text my name, Buck, to 989898 to get started today. Oh, another hashtag resistance judge situation here. This one's even crazier in some ways. Trump administration is not allowed to cut funding to Harvard, according to a judge, a Boston Obama appointee judge. What a shock that is, right? Of course. How do we know that was the case? How do we know it would be a Boston Democrat appointee? And sure enough, well, let me talk about the case a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about this judge's background. So the White House is going to appeal this, obviously, but they're saying you can't take funding away from Harvard. So I just want to be very clear on this. Is it then the case that this situation, is it then the case that Harvard is entitled to taxpayer funds? In what amount? And for how long? Right. This is what you see. This is when the system is exposing itself, that what's supposed to be a privilege is treated like a right as long as it isn't helping the right, as long as it is for the left or the Democrat Party. Then it is sacrosanct. And people have seen enough of this, I think, to understand how far the rot spreads. But that Judge Burroughs, she also shut down Trump's travel ban in January 2017. She also presided over and went against Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard, which eventually made its way to the Supreme Court and found in favor of Students for Fair Admission. She's a lib, commie, propagandist jurist. And yet she's in a position to say that Harvard still gets billions of dollars? Why? Government grants can't be changed by the executive branch? Someone explain it. It says the Administrative Procedures Act. You know, whenever you see a judicial figure in the Trump era rely on the Administrative Procedures Act, it's just, I don't like it. That's their version of I don't like it, because it's things like, oh, you didn't give enough notice before you made this decision. Huh? I'm making the decision. They've had plenty of notice. It's been months. Nope. You need to give them more notice, says I, the judge. It's crazy. And this is, though, what we continue to see, judges who are just usurping the authority of the legislative branch and deciding that they are going to do whatever they can, even if they're going to get overturned at the Supreme Court, to slow Trump down, to gum up the works, to sabotage the machinery of MAGA. This is where it is. All right, look, it's not unusual for new tech companies to find 15 minutes of fame. Remember that open source AI model developed in Asia? I mean, that was a big deal earlier this year. Well, they showed up strong, and a company based in China with AI technology rivaled a well-known AI chatbot and others for attention. Point here is AI, this battle is a battle for global economic and national security supremacy, and we need to beat China. That's critical. And America right now, under the Trump administration, is making this a focus. This administration is preparing an estimated $2.2 trillion counterstrike to Chinese AI, what I call a Manhattan Project 2, to take back our lead in the AI arms race. I break it all down in a brand new interview, including the companies I believe could soar when this comes out. Find this interview and all the details online at a new website. We're taking this off air, so to speak. The website is offair25.com. That's offair25.com. Go check out that video today, and please subscribe. Offair25.com, paid for by Paradigm Press. That's the show. Shields high.